The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi guys, I'm Em, also known as the Hungry Dominican, and I'm your host for Foodie Down Bronx. This is the show where we catch up with artists, entrepreneurs, chefs, and foodies who make a part of the incredible and ever-growing Bronx food scene. So if you like to eat, get your appetites ready and stay tuned. From BronxNet to the world, this is Foodie Down Bronx. Welcome to Foodie Down Bronx. Stay connected to us on Instagram at BronxNetTV, at Foodie Down Bronx, and follow me at The Hungry Dominican. On today's show, we'll talk to Amaurys Grullon of Bronx Native about personal motivations, goals, social media, and of course, food. But before we meet our guests, let's get into this week's Chew News. Burger King has released its Impossible Whopper, offering up vegans the chance to get their hands on the chain's signature burger. After successfully testing out the burger in several markets, Burger King dropped the meatless option into all 7,200 of its locations nationwide. After testing out the burger myself, I gotta say I am a fan. Make sure that if you want the full vegan experience, you opt out of the mayo and cheese. McDonald's, the next move is all yours. Also, make sure to bring back the McRib. Wendy's, my third favorite fast food chain, but my first favorite fast food chain when there isn't a Five Guys or a Shake Shack around, has brought back their insanely addictive spicy nuggets. This is a straight up cause for celebration, folks. No joke. If you've never had these little beauties, do yourself a favor and try them out as fast as you can because Wendy's has not announced how long they'll be on the menu. Our guest today is the co-founder of Bronx Native and has cemented himself as one of the borough's most influential voices. Bronx Native is located at 127 Lincoln Avenue, where an array of Bronx-based accessories, including shirts and hats, are sold along with a steady stream of events that take place at the shop meant to highlight Bronx artists. Bronx Native was featured on Viceland's Hustle, and Amaurys has been awarded the Made in the Bronx Award by the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the show, Amaurys Grullon.
Thank you.
My man, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited as well, Brody.
Thank you, man. Okay, so we have a lot that we have to cover.
Yes.
Okay, and one of them being social media, and social media makes it kind of simple for anyone to really kind of know your story. But I want to come at this like we've never spoken before. I want you to tell me...
Intense.
Right.
Yes.
It's super intense conversation.
I love it. Yes, let's do it.
I want you to tell me the origins of Bronx Native. When did you cook up this idea? Your motivations, your sort of end goal. Even though we've discussed before the show, there really is no end goal when it comes to your own brand and your own business. But let's go step by step. When did this sort of come about?
Let's do it. First of all, before I start, I just want to say, can I get a quick yer? Get it. And thank you so much for having me, my man.
Of
You're
course,
making
man.
it
Of course.
happen. Been following you for a hot minute, and
Thank you, man.
I'm glad you got your own show.
Thank you.
Congrats on all the success.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. So Bronx Native, born and raised in the Boogie Down Bronx, right? I'm sure.
Well,
Oh,
I was
Hungry Dominican.
born and raised in Manhattan, but I was
Okay.
legit like walking distance to Kingsbridge.
Okay.
And I had family in the Bronx. So
what's
basically, yes and no.
Yes,
But you know what I'm
I
trying to
mean,
say.
we all, it's all love out here, okay? But yeah, born and raised in the, but from Dominican descent. My family's
Yes.
from the Dominican Republic. Where I was born here. I, was raised with this stigma, with this narrative of the Bronx being this bad place, right? Quote unquote bad place. Everywhere I went, even people from the Bronx saying things about the Bronx that for me, I never thought they were true, right? For me, I believe that the Bronx is the most beautiful place on earth, my man.
I have to agree.
I'm from the Bronx.
Yeah.
You from the Bronx. We're from the Bronx. We make the Bronx, right? We are beautiful. Our culture is beautiful. Our communities are hardworking, incredible people. So that makes the Bronx incredible, right? So I said to myself, we need to do something to change the narrative. We need to do something to change the stigma. And it just started with a conversation between me and my sister, right? We were like, look, we love the BX, right? We want to be able to wear merch. We want to be able to represent. We want to create something for the Bronx, by the Bronx. So I remember one night we were looking for merchandise online, right? Clothing that represented us, that identified us, that empowered us, and we couldn't find no BX merch, Brody. You seen the Brooklyn merch.
Yeah,
You seen
right.
the
It's everywhere.
NY. You see even Harlem, right? You walk through 125th, people's is buying, selling merch. But the Bronx didn't really have something like this, so we took it upon ourselves. Us coming from a creative background, I'm a graphic designer. I work in media, and my sister's a fashion designer. We said, look, let's create this brand that not only creates this merchandise that represents us, but also tackles issues that the Bronx go through on a day-to-day basis, right? Essentially tackling all the stigmas, changing the narrative, and being a cultural hub for the Bronx, right? And we definitely, evolved so much from that initial conversation, and it's been an incredible journey. And I'm glad to be here talking with you about it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I want to touch upon that because Sanji, my producer, and I, we sat down for an interview pretty recently, and I spoke about how there is a narrative about the Bronx, right? Especially if you're not from the Bronx,
Yeah.
in which you think that it's gritty, it's hardcore, it's inaccessible, it's not a place you want to go to. And then you're right about the fashion. There wasn't anything really kind of, pushing out the Bronx as something that's marketable, right? So, which made it, again, inaccessible to people because there was no visual representation on anyone's body saying
Yes.
BX Bronx.
And can I get a year?
There you go, beautiful. And
Yes.
and I felt like that's super important. Representation, right? Everyone talks about representation
Yeah.
on so many levels, but when it came to the Bronx, like I said, I was walking distance from Kingsbridge, and I had family in the Bronx, and it just felt so isolated, like
Yeah,
its
yeah.
own island,
Yes.
because there was no. I mean, I don't even want to say Brooklynized because Brooklyn, it's definitely its own thing, but there wasn't this positive image, I guess.
Yes, positive
Right?
image. There wasn't this kind of and I'm happy to be living in this time. I always tell everyone what a time to be alive,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because there's kind of this reawakening of like, look, the Bronx is beautiful, right? The Bronx is my home. I do want to represent where I come from, right? And this feeling of entrepreneurship and this wave and this movement of like people kind of stepping up and doing what they want to do, right? Expressing themselves the way they want to express themselves. And it's tying into this whole, Bronx Native movement and this movement of the Bronx, moving forward and moving beyond these stigmas and this negativity, right? So there's a lot more positivity now, a lot of media, a lot of content, a lot of visuals that are now representing the Bronx in the light that it should. So I'm happy about that. Yeah.
I noticed this because I've actually lived in different parts of the BX throughout my life, and recently I was actually living in Brooklyn, and I came back to the Bronx.
Boo.
And I did, when I initially was living here about close to like 10 years ago, my initial time in the BX, I did not see, especially on social media, any visual representation, much like the clothing, right?
Correct.
And then I would look up certain hashtags, Bronx, the Bronx, El Bronx, and you compare that to the images that you find with another borough. Again, always going back to Brooklyn, right? And then you see that difference, like that dramatic difference.
Yeah.
And so I realized that in a way, going back to the marketing, these boroughs are really everything's a brand now. Everything's a commodity.
Oh, no, definitely.
Right?
Definitely did, yes.
And even I was sort of under the spell of like, oh man, maybe there's not that much in the BX that maybe there's not that much that the borough offers, because I'm even being told that there's this specific way of thinking of it. And then of course I realize that's not true. Because we're in it now. We're the ones that create the narrative.
Yes, that is
right? We're the
correct.
ones that push out the content so that the world can see what the Bronx is about.
Yep.
And I know that you're super crazy active on social media.
Yes,
And
indeed.
it's this question is sort of like it might be, I don't know, weird to answer, because let's say that there was no social media. The way that we have it now, the way that we know it now, how would you take it upon yourself to push what the Bronx is about? What would you like literally be handing out flyers, or like would you be doing like
in the
what do you
street
think?
with a whole costume.
Yeah, right,
Come
just
to
like-
the
like,
Bronx.
come
the
on,
Bronx is lit.
right?
Yeah. No, so in the beginning of Bronx Native, and I tell this to everyone, Bronx Native would not be where it's at if it was not for our Instagram account, man. Social media is a very powerful tool if used correctly, right?
Yes, it is.
I come from a branding background, marketing, design. I know the power of social media. I utilize it as it's like my job, right? I literally, you know, plan out all the posts for the coming weeks. I create the content. I'm constantly thinking, like, even here, like, okay, what am I gonna post? I gotta get somebody doing behind the scenes, this and that. You know what I mean? So for me, you know, I tell everyone to utilize social media to promote themselves and make it happen. We are fortunate now that we do have two shops, right? We have the Bronx Native shop in Mott Haven and the newly opened Bronx Native Market in Hunts Point that allow us to have a physical presence. So if we didn't have social media, we could still kind of, you know,
Right.
we
You
get
could-
the
you could-
audience.
exactly.
We still get the people. But that initial start of Bronx Native really started with our Instagram account, you know, and us promoting on social media, us meeting. You know, I remember going through all my followers. I was following all the influencers in the Bronx, and I said, I'm going to meet with him today. You know what I mean? Hey, let's chat. Let's have coffee, right? Going through the, you know, connecting with people. Like you said, being very active and interactive. People want to connect with you, right? So I'm like on the IG story, like, yo, what's good, everyone?
right.
Good morning, this and that. And people react to that, right? People like that. People want that connectivity, right? So it's been very beneficial for us, and you know. But if we didn't have social media in the beginning, probably handing out flyers,
right?
you know,
Yeah.
get my spray cans, start, you know, you know, writing Bronx Native on the walls and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But we do have this great thing, which is social media and the internet and stuff that has allowed us to move and to the way we have moved. You
And
know?
to have that
Yeah.
virtual presence. All
Yeah,
right, so
yeah.
let's continue that conversation when we come back from the break. Guys, we're taking a quick break. Foodie Down Bronx, we'll be right back.
Bistro was initially an inception to be an homage to hip hop. Hip hop was created in the Bronx. This whole place is an homage to that. It's a callback to the beginning of hip hop, to when it first started in this borough. Everything is unique about Bistro. That goes from the murals that are throughout the entire venue. That goes to the artwork, which was by Joe Conzo. That goes to the furniture, which was reclaimed from an antique furniture shop across the street, reupholstered around the corner. The chandeliers came from a Broadway play that was reclaimed by a lighting company around the corner as well. We tried to keep everything in here as local as possible, so that this way it spoke true to the borough. We want people to come in and feel at home and have that retro feel, but feel that it's been upgraded and feel very modern to it. In the 70s, when hip hop was created, it was by Black and Latino children. And when they came home, what is it that their parents were feeding them? What is it that they ate? We wanted to take that food, elevate it a little bit, and kind of mix it together. So we have an Afro-Latino or Afro-Caribbean menu. So we have chicken and waffle, we have churrasco, this whole melding of two different cultures. I'm born and raised in the Bronx, and it was very important for us to bring something to this community, not just take from the community. But at the same time, we're bringing something back, and that's what initially started in the South Bronx. So far, the community has been great. From our grand opening to today, we've been supported by local businesses, by local elected officials, by actors, by athletes. Willie Colon from the New York Jets. We've had Red Alert. We've had this huge outpouring, not just from the larger community, but from the community, the local community, and that's people who live in the area. This is honestly a labor of love. And we feel that when you put your love and you're all into something, it will come back tenfold. We just want people to come by and experience what it's like to be here, what it was like to be in the South Bronx at that time, what it was like to experience music at that time, and kind of have a different flavor and a different taste and leave with something that they didn't necessarily expect, which is what the borough of the Bronx is. People who are from outside this borough expect one thing but experience another. And we want this restaurant to be the same.
one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, the Hungry Dominican, and I'm joined by Amaurys Grullon of the Bronx Native. So let's get back to what we were talking about before, social media, because I can talk about social media till the end of time.
I love it.
So I do love your account. You have a wonderful account, and you mentioned how interactive you are with your followers. And when you were initially starting the account, you were trying to make connections real quick with people that were from the borough.
Yes.
Do you handle your account yourself?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so it's a
100%
daily
it's me.
operation.
Daily, I try to answer all DMs, all comments, everything, and I got other accounts too that I'm managing at the moment.
And so,
Yeah.
okay, so we also talked about this a little bit out on the show, and I said, hold up, stop, because I definitely want people to hear about this. I think that if you're super dedicated to having your brand succeed online, on social media, you have to commit a lot of time.
Yes.
A massive amount of time.
Yes.
Right? And I think that it's easy for me, at least, to sort of know when I look at somebody's Instagram page, I can tell that they're either super dedicated or they just don't really care.
Definitely.
And you had mentioned that you tend to plan out your posts in advance. So there's no situation in which you sort of post like instinctively, like you just sort of feel something and you just want to put it out there?
do. There are times like that when I see something like, I gotta post this ASAP, right? So I do post like at random times. Also, if there's like, if I meet like a celebrity or like something is like hot at the moment, I'll post it ASAP. But for the most part, I do have every post planned out. On Sunday, I sit down, go through my whole schedule. I have these multiple accounts. I know what I'm gonna post. Try to post about 2 to 3 times a day.
Right.
In our main account, the Bronx Native, and curation, man. And I tell everyone, if social media is done right, consistency, good quality, interactivity, it works, my man. So it's worked for us, and I've even done workshops, about branding, about social media, about how to market yourself and stuff like that. And it's something that we would love to continue spreading the good news, and teaching people about this, because it's very important, especially, in the era that we're in, right? A very digital infused era where everything is like, if you don't have an IG, like, I've talked to clients, I've talked to business people, they're like, we don't even look at websites anymore. We look at Instagram accounts.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm like, damn. So we see the value now, and we see the importance of that. So, definitely.
I've had clients that have told me, we have a website, we understand the importance of having one, but that's not where they're looking right off the bat. They're looking to see if you have an Instagram. They're looking to see, let's see how big your Facebook is. I even have people who sometimes check on Twitter. Like, let's see what's going on Twitter.
What is he writing these
Like, what is he writing? Right.
Yeah.
Actually, let me ask you about Twitter. Do you tweet?
We do. tweet. No. So we do have a Twitter. We're not as active, right? Whatever we post on the Instagram gets posted on Twitter and the Facebook. I am trying to get a team together because I do, it gets overwhelming at times. That one IG page takes a lot of my time. So we have somebody who's taking the Twitter to build that up. And then we have somebody who's helping with the Facebook as well, right? So I have somebody on Twitter, Facebook, and for me, I'm just doing Instagram for the most part.
Do you think Facebook is super important? And that might be another silly question, but I've had conversations with people who just do not even mess with Facebook. They completely ignore it. They just stick on Instagram. And for me, it's like, all right, Instagram might be the face of your company, but the backbone, I think, for me, is Facebook.
Yeah. It is the backbone, especially since Facebook bought Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And you can actually, there's a lot of these tools, these business tools that you can target audiences, in Facebook that you could probably can't really do on Instagram and stuff like that. The shop is connected to Facebook, which connects to Instagram. So we do use Facebook. Our face, we our main page is Instagram, but I do believe in making sure your assets are not only on one space.
I agree with you 100%.
Definitely,
yes, for sure.
Do these other social media platforms, even YouTube, right? If people could be like, oh no, it's too much, like videos, the algorithm, all that stuff. Do it, man. I go to these. We go to a lot of schools, right? We talk to a lot of kids, and about entrepreneurship, creativity, the Bronx, and they're always talking about YouTube. Everything is YouTube. I mentioned, we have a YouTube. Oh, how many subscribers do you have? Oh, do you know PewDiePie? Oh, you know this gaming and YouTube and whatever. And I'm like, damn, these kids are very. YouTube is like a kid. I was talking at this seminar thing for kids, entrepreneurs from the Bronx kids, which is incredible. And this kid just raises his hand. He says, YouTube is my universe. And I'm like, that's incredible. Congrats. That's but so saying this, we need to be able to be diverse, right? So not only the Instagram, definitely the YouTube, and even from hearing that kid, I'm like, damn, I really gotta get back on my YouTube game.
It's a tier system, right? Because you realize that Instagram might be the thing that everyone's talking about, but it's the thing that everyone from our age bracket, our generation is talking about, and then you have younger kids who might be more into YouTube, and then you have whoever's into Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Because for me, it's like, you and I, we're both millennials, but I'm coming at it from like the beginning of the spectrum, and you're coming at it towards the end of the spectrum. So there's
the vibes.
There's a lot of things in between us that we've experienced very differently, and how we use social media is quite different. That's why for me, it's like, initially I had just started Instagram, and I was like, Instagram is the only thing for me. And then I realized that, well, there's more people kind of my age bracket that actually like Facebook. And so I realized the importance of Facebook for my business, for my branding, for my marketing, and I wanted to embrace it. Now that I embrace it 100%, it's like I realize that it's super important because if anything, Facebook, like I said, it's kind of the backbone of most businesses. Speaking of which, I want you to tell me a little bit about your Bronx Native market.
Yes.
Give me some info.
Intense. So 2 months ago, we opened up the Bronx Native Market in Hunts Point, right? So what we did with our first shop in Mott Haven, 127 Lincoln Avenue, we created a cultural hub, right? A place not only to sell our merchandise, but a platform for artists, creatives, entrepreneurs, right? To express themselves, to gather, connect, network, and it's been beautiful, right? Very organic, very we've kind of become this small hub, iconic space where it's like you have to go here to experience the Bronx, right? And we're about to be open there for 2 years now. In October, we're about to be 2 years. Thank you. And then with this you got the opportunity to come to Hunts Point, which is my old stomping grounds, along with Hunts Point area. And for us, we wanted to continue what we were doing in our initial shop, but now be more for the community, right? So we call it the Bronx Native Market because it is technically a market, right, for other artists and other entrepreneurs that have a product, that have a brand, that want to sell their stuff there. So we have about 20 plus vendors at the moment in the market, anything from clothing to soaps to jewelry, so we have a diverse range of different vendors, and it's very beautiful for us to become a platform in these different levels, right? Not only in events and stuff, but now we're like a physical shop for these other entrepreneurs and for these other creatives that are coming up and maybe we didn't really have this when we were coming up, but now we're providing this, and it adds to our mission and what we're doing through Bronx Native.
How does that make you feel just as a person? All of these things that you're sort of giving to your community.
That's a deep question. No, it makes me feel great. You know what I mean? When I started Bronx Native, it wasn't really about selling merchandise and making money and doing this and that. It was very much about the community and doing something good and impactful, right? I went to the School of Visual Arts, which is downtown by 23rd Street, to do graphic design, and it was incredible. But every time I went up there and I said, "What's good? I'm from the Bronx, New York," they looked at me crazy, right? They were like, what is the Bronx? I've never been. Have you been shot before? I'm scared. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So and I saw the lack of just, knowledge, and the lack of, people, what they've seen in the past or what they've heard and stuff. So I really wanted to change people's perspectives, right, and really put the Bronx on the map. We've been on the map,
Yeah.
coming from nothing, hip hop, salsa, everything we've provided to the world, but now we've kind of been underrated, left to the side, and for me, I wasn't having it, you know what I mean? So it was very much about putting our people up there and showing the Bronx the way it should be shown, right? And it makes me feel incredible, you know what I mean? I love it, and
love that.
very fulfilled, very happy, and it's what I want to do for the rest of my life, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's continue after this break. Guys, grab yourselves a snack. Foodie Down Bronx. We'll be right back.
Lit.
Grill was opened in November 18, 2013, and now we'll have 4 years of being the sole owner of My Haven. My Haven is kind of like the Cheers of the Bronx, where I like my customers to feel welcome the moment they walk into the door, and the moment when they leave, I make sure they say hi and bye all the time. Once a month we have comedy night, we have game night, karaoke every Friday. We also have open mic the first Saturday of every month. Outside of that, we also have the back room that they could do private events, catering, meetings, etc. My menu is pretty unique. It's very versatile. You could find anything from burgers, pasta, flatbread, schnitzel, which is just chicken breast with mashed potatoes, and what we call Israeli salad. Our most popular dish in the salad will be the sesame tuna salad. We're very flexible. If there's something there that you want, we'll do our best to make it happen. We have one specific artist. His name is Jeff. He usually does the rotation of the artwork. He is a community resident. He lives across the street, and he comes in almost every day. And he has sold a few pieces by them being here. And so far, he's been my only artist. I would like for everyone to come on out to My Haven Bar and Grill at 1 Bruckner Boulevard and try us out.
Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M, the Hungry Dominican. I'm joined on set by Amaurys Grullon, co-founder of Bronx Native. So let's get back to a few things that we talked about. I don't want to forget them. But before we do that, since we just came back from that segment,
Yes.
we got to talk food.
Talk to me.
And I've got 3 very important questions I want to ask you. Okay, number 1, mango or mofongo?
Mango.
Excellent. Okay. Do you pronounce it spaghetti or espaghetti?
Spaghetti.
Good answer. And the third one, which I think is the most, this is how I'm going to know your character, right?
All right, let's go.
Tostones or maduros?
Tostones.
Oh, my man.
Yep. I'm going to keep it a buck, man.
Yo,
a lot
3
of people
for
go,
3.
That's a vibe. Thank you, bro. But those are some tough, good questions that should be like the essential questions. Like when you you meet a girl,
Right?
you meet anyone. I got 3 questions for you. Let's go. Tostones or maduros?
Mango or mofongo, spaghetti or espaghetti?
Yep, those are good.
Beautiful.
But yeah, you know me. You know me now.
So we were talking about the Bronx Native Market,
Yes.
and that makes me want to talk to you about the open mics that you host.
Yes.
Can you tell me some of the artists you've had on your open mics?
So bi-weekly we host an open mic in our shop, right? And it's open to the public, my man. You know, free to the public. We kind of just create this vibe of these up and coming artists that come in and perform. A lot of them have been, first time performing. They're spoken word artists, they're hip hop artists, they're R&B artists, they're singers, rappers, all these things. They connect with each other, they collaborate. So it's dope to see that synergy. We've been doing it for about close to 2 years now.
Wow.
The open mics, and very successful. We have something called Bronx Native Records too that is part of the
Tell me about that.
It's part under the umbrella. So Bronx Native Record, we saw that we were doing a lot of things involving music, right? The Bronx being the Mecca, birthplace of culture, hip hop, salsa, all these things.
Yeah.
Only right for us to involve ourselves with music, right? Every event we had performers, right? We were being called to do performances in other spots. We had our own artists, right? So we were kind of building this thing very organically. And I said, hey, let's create this thing called Bronx Native Records, essentially starting as a way for us to help these artists even more, right? We've done the open mics. We've had open studio sessions, right, where we rent out a studio and artists can just come in and
That's
record,
awesome.
right on the spot. We're actually working on a project which is going to come out soon, a mixtape compilation album, all Bronx-based artists, different genres, and we're going to be putting it in one tape. We're going to be recording it. It's going to be very dope, very special. So that's coming up. That's one of the things that are coming up in 2020, and is part of what we're doing. You know what I mean? So it's
cool.
fit really well with everything else.
So staying with the theme of music, you were at the 46th anniversary celebration of hip hop. How was that?
46 years.
46 years.
Hip hop.
Wow.
Most influential genre out here.
1520 Sedgwick Avenue.
Yes, indeed. Not only a music genre, but a lifestyle, man.
Absolutely.
Mainstream, most heard
It's
genre.
I think it's the culture. It's the only culture, right?
It's the culture. It's just like
100%.
hip hop. When people say like, "Yo, for the culture," but what really is, it's just hip hop has influenced that, and it's become so big. And happy to say that it came from the South Bronx, Boogie Down Bronx, the vibes. So yeah, they had this event, honoring and awarding, a lot of the old school pioneers, right? And for a lot of y'all that that don't know, a lot of the pioneers of hip hop still live in the Bronx.
That's amazing, yeah.
And they do not get the recognition that they should, right? Because they kind of just did their thing, right? And hip hop went all over the world and became this billion-trillion-dollar business, right? But we were awarding them. It's for me, it's always great to be part of that, because Bronx Native is a brand that combines the old school and the new school, right? I represent, new, what's happening now, pop culture, but never forgetting where we came from and the people that created this whole thing for us. So Much love to hip hop, man.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So another thing you have under your Bronx Native umbrella is BX Writers.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
BX Writers. So I have a partner. His name is Josue Cáceres, childhood friend, and you know, born and raised with him my whole life, and is a writer, right? So he works with me in Bronx Native, and I remember we chatted about the literary scene in the Bronx, right? Which is also, you know, something that is coming up. We got the only bookstore in the Bronx, the Lit Bar that just opened up a block away from the shop. We have things like the Boogie Down Books, you know, all these artists, spoken word writers and stuff that are coming up right now in the Bronx. So him being a writer, he came up with this thing called BX Writer, right, which is a platform for Bronx writers and creatives that are in the literary scene. Right now we just put our calling for writers, right? So we got 70 plus writers that we're gonna be putting into this physical book, right? Everything from creative writers to poems, everything. So right now we're making the book. It's gonna come out soon, and it's gonna be a very, you know, a book that symbolizes togetherness, right? Symbolizes what our people are doing now, right? And the writing scene and stuff like that. So we're very excited about that. Definitely check it out. For any updates, follow BX Writers and of course Bronx Native, but that's coming out soon, bro.
That's amazing. That's one of the things I mean, you know, you do a lot of great things, but that was one of the things that for me personally, when I saw you were doing the BX Writers, that really spoke to me because growing up, I've always wanted to be a writer. I love writing. I'm working on my own things as well. But I didn't feel like I had a lot of, and maybe I wasn't looking, but I didn't have a lot of people that were on my same level when it came to being Dominican, wanting to be a writer, you know, living in this country all my life, trying to like connect with DR, you know, and sort of explaining myself and writing down my thoughts, you know. And then I see what you're doing with BX Writers, and I see, you know, this old generation of Latinos and people who are just, I feel like because of social media and because of what you're doing, there's this platform to express yourself, not doubt yourself, not think that there's nobody else like you out there who wants to sort of share their own stories, you know, the way that you're allowing people to have their platform. Which again, like for me, it's like, how does that make you feel? Like you're offering all of these things to people at such a young age because you yourself didn't have these things, right? So that just must make you feel incredible. I mean, you have to have a moment where sometimes you're like,
it's
you know,
pretty lit. I'm gonna be honest, bro. My life is incredible.
You have to accept. You have to own that, right?
It's incredible. Doing, you know, anyone who does what they love, right, and is having an impact doing what they love. I think that's incredible. You know, for me, one of my biggest accomplishments, I tell this to everyone, is connecting entrepreneurship, creativity, and community, right, into one thing, which is Bronx Native, right? I'm an entrepreneur, business person, you know, I'm doing this. Bronx Native is a business, right? I am also a creative, right? So I'm expressing myself. I'm able to do, you know, different mediums. If it's not film, it's clothing, design, this and that, and then community, right? Which is things like the BX Writer book, Bronx Native Records. But you hit it right in the dot when you said representation, my man. You know,
that's definitely important. You know what? Let's continue with that when we come back from the break, guys. Grab yourselves a snack. Foodie Down Bronx. We'll be right back.
Let's do it.
In 4 days, there was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children. She didn't know what to do.
Did you have a good day at school?
She gave them some broth without any bread.
There you go.
And kissed them all soundly.
Night night.
Good night. And put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. Thank you for joining me and Bronx Native. I'm Amaurys Grullon. So we last left off on representation, and that reminds me that you are at the Bronx Night Market representing your brand.
Yes, indeed.
So tell me a bit about the Bronx Night Market.
The Bronx Night Market, we've been with them from the start, from the first one that they did when they started last year. And I think it's incredible, right, to take the Fordham Plaza, right? This
which is a great space,
which is
yes.
an amazing space,
Absolutely.
right? So much traffic, so much people, diversity, all this stuff, and to put all these amazing vendors, not only merch and stuff, but food, right? Incredible food vendors, entertainment, right? I think is and I've said this before, is an incredible. If you want to feel, taste, hear, wear the Bronx, go to the night market. You know what I mean? Because you get to experience all these things. You get to buy some merch. You get to eat some food from local vendors. You get to hear some local talent. So it's kind of just like this festival, market vibe that has everything that encapsulates what the Bronx really is.
So for those who don't know, when does the Bronx Night Market happen?
Saturdays. Yes, indeed.
Okay, so it's every Saturday up until a certain point. I'm assuming September or October.
Yes, they kind of put it a little. They've been getting more and more dates.
Okay.
So yes, but they've been doing dope. Yeah.
So when people walk up to your area, what can they expect to find?
They can expect to find some Bronx-based merchandise,
Awesome.
bro. Yeah, so all of our merch, from T-shirts to hats, hoodies. We also sell books. We sell other accessories as well. So you get to see everything that we have to offer, right, in our shops. It's kind of like we're popping up in the market, right? So we bring a little bit of the shop and put it right in Fordham Plaza.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I saw a clip of yours that you were being interviewed by Bronx 12, and you had said that you saw Drake's Hotline Bling, and you saw the font.
Yes.
Right? And that inspired you to do one of your shirts that has just the Bronx.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that you live in the borough that hip-hop was born in, and you as a millennial are now taking examples from hip-hop itself to create your own brand? It's like this cycle.
It's a cycle.
Right?
But
Right?
yeah, my man. We use a lot of pop cultural elements in our clothing.
And again, as you should, because it's from the Bronx. This is all from the Bronx.
And it did originate in the Bronx. So you know what I mean? Using pop cultural elements, using things from Bronx history, things that we see on a day-to-day basis, and just implementing that with good design, good marketing, good branding, and just putting it out there, man.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, this is a subject, of course, that's very tricky, but again, you're living in, like you said, what a time to be alive. All these experiences and all these things are happening in the Bronx. What are your thoughts about gentrification? And I don't mean to get into something that's so heavy that we can't ever have like a final, conclusion to this subject, but you are living at a time right now where the Bronx is going through a lot of change.
Yeah.
Where authenticity is the most important thing, especially if you're from the borough, right? Because nobody wants to be seen as they're just sort of faking it,
Definitely.
right? So what are your thoughts on gentrification? How do you, well, first of all, do you embrace it? Do you understand that it's something that is inevitable, or do you get pushback from people who say maybe, you're the reason why gentrification is becoming faster and faster, or do you just sort of say to yourself, you know what, this is the times, this is what's happening?
Deep question. Deep. So gentrification, I always tell everyone, we're not against change, and we're not, we want our people, we deserve a better way of life, right? We deserve the good things that our borough have been kind of just the resources, all these things, businesses, we've kind of just been thrown to the side and not been giving. So we're not against change, and we're not against, good things in our neighborhoods, but we are against displacement, right? We've worked so hard, and blood, sweat, and tears, right, for to be displaced, to be
Right.
like, oh, the rent's too high. Sorry. Thanks
Yeah.
for being here through the times when the Bronx is burning,
Mhm.
but now you can't even live here,
Mhm,
right? You know,
mhm.
that's crazy for me, right? You know, so for us, creating Bronx Native was, you know, and there was, you know, it was us taking kind of a stand, like, look, yes, we're the Bronx. Yes, we have all of this to offer.
Right.
No one's gonna take what is ours, right?
Mhm.
This is our home. And we continue to, you know, do that, fight that battle every day, right? Through the things that we're doing. And yeah, dude.
The reason I ask is because, again, it's a very tricky subject, but I applaud the things that you do and the fact that you do have this merchandise that does have the Bronx insignia on hats, on T-shirts, you know, beautiful designs, creative designs. You're embracing where you're from, and I think that, again, it all ties in with authenticity. If you're doing it with good intentions, and you're doing it with the intent to send out the message of this is the Bronx, this is who we are, this is what we do, and you're from the Bronx, which I think it's the
Yes,
most important
indeed.
thing. I think for me, it's like you can't talk about the BX
Yeah.
if you're not from the BX in that
Def-
sense,
def-
right? And so I do think about, you know, a lot of younger entrepreneurs who, again, might deal with maybe the older folk thinking, hey, you know, you're bringing too much attention to the Bronx in such a way that creates
So what? So we
problems.
can't, you know, yeah, that is a thing, and there's backlash, like, oh, what are you doing, you know? But then does that mean we can't really express ourselves? Does it mean we can't do the things, you know, cool things in our neighborhoods because we're scared of these things that are happening or could happen? I always, you know, I think the Bronx is different than the other boroughs. Definitely, we're the last frontier, but we've seen what happened to Brooklyn, seeing what's happening to Harlem, and we are cut from a different cloth.
Absolutely.
We are fighters. We're ambitious. We're hardworking, and we're gonna do whatever it takes, and we're gonna do things differently. You
Right.
know, so
Yeah.
to
I think-
change that, to not be what these other boroughs have become, you know, and stick with the culture and the flavor and what are people, you know.
I think if anything, that's the one thing that I've sort of I felt, you know, coming back to the Bronx and seeing a lot of business people coming from the Bronx, that it is, to me at least, it feels very sort of way more authentic than any other borough I've lived in, because you do
Definitely,
have the blood, sweat, and tears, and
People
it's like,
smile here, man.
Yeah.
They say hi to you.
you know, it's.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. Going back to like the beginning of the conversation, the narrative that I was told about the Bronx is so different from actually experiencing the Bronx.
Yeah.
There's so much positivity here. There's so much beauty.
Community togetherness.
Communities
incredible.
are incredible here. You know, and again, it's like these things that like shouldn't be said, but they have to be said because no one really kind of gives you that spin
Yeah, definitely.
about it, you know. And so, you know, I just got to say that, you know, before we wrap all this up, you have been doing a great job. I've been a fan of yours for a minute. I know you and I have tried to like connect in the past, but
Yeah.
you're a busy man, which, you know, I love that. I'd rather have you tell me I can't do it right now, Em, because I got all these things going on, than like, you know, never mind. And then I'm like, man, what is this dude? What is he
Nope.
even doing? You know what I'm
Nope.
saying? But I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you talking to me. I'm really happy that I had you on for the entire hour, and if I could have you for another hour, that would be amazing. Cause
You have me.
There's
me.
give yourself to me.
No, dude, definitely a pleasure, my man. Like I
Thank you,
said,
bro.
I've been following you for a minute now. You've been doing your thing. Every time I look at your page, I get hungry.
Good.
Incredible
I'm
food.
doing my job.
Bro, you're doing a good job.
Thank you,
Okay.
brother.
But thank you for having me. Incredible interview, and continue the success of this
Thank you, man.
show. Love it. Been seeing it, and much love, man.
Thank you, man.
From
Thank
a
you, brother.
BX Dominican to another
Dominicano, ya tú
Dominicano, ya tú
sabes.
sabes.
Ya tú sabes.
Que lo que lo what. All right, let's make it
Thank you,
happen.
my man. All right, guys, stay connected with Amaurys by following him at Bronx Native on Instagram. Well, that's all for the show. Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you to my guests today for joining us. Tune in every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. here on BronxNet Optimum 67 and FiOS 33. Also, tune in on the go at bronxnet.org and find us on YouTube. From BronxNet to the world, this is Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, the Hungry Dominican. Remember to feed your mind, feed your body, and if you see me coming along, feed me. Adios.
City is an Asian fusion restaurant in the South Bronx. When we built the restaurant, we put our heart and soul into it. We wanted something that people will walk in and will see the restaurant and say, wow. And the moment it's combined with the taste of the food, which is also unique, gives you a taste of Asian places in the world.
Our staple here is the tuna bruschetta. It's amazing. People rave about it. It's what a lot of people come here for. They're like, somebody told me to try something that comes on this crispy rice. It's amazing. It's crispy rice, guacamole, spicy tuna, ingredients that people really, really love.
Our goal here is not just to make amazing food or nice decor or be nice. It's the whole thing. I want people to experience something that they've never experienced anywhere in the world. Good service, good food, and that it looks decent and nice. And when they're happy, it's for me like I just had an amazing epiphany. So it's the 4th year that we participate in this, and we're very, very happy to do it because for us it's giving back to the community that supported us since day one.